All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolutely incredible story of a guy who pretty much single-handedly reshaped decades of popular music. We're going to explore how one individual's wildly eclectic taste became the literal foundation for the modern musical landscape we all know today.
So, think about this for a second. What on earth do David Bowie, the massive spectacle of the 2012 Olympic Games, and some obscure punk band from Northern Ireland actually have in common? On the surface, literally nothing. But in reality, they are deeply, intimately connected by one singular, highly influential radio DJ. It's a fascinating web of influence, and we're going to untangle the whole shebang right now.
Section 1. The Architect of Modern Music. Let's meet the maestro behind it all.
Picture this. It's July 2012. Director Danny Boyle is putting on the opening ceremony for the London Olympics. You've got an estimated 900 million people watching worldwide. And the soundtrack? It's this wildly jarring mix of genres. You've got the prog rock of Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, the heavy blues of Led Zeppelin, the raw punk rebellion of the Sex Pistols, and the rapid-fire drum and bass of DJ High Contrast. It's kind of crazy, right? So what's the connection? Well, the legendary British broadcaster John Peel championed every single one of these artists early in their careers. High Contrast debuted his first single on Peel's show back in 2001, and Oldfield's Tubular Bells, which sold millions, might have flopped completely if Peel hadn't publicly gone on record calling it the best album he'd heard since Sgt. Pepper. Now, to truly appreciate what Peel pulled off here, we really have to transport ourselves back to the musical climate of that time. Early radio was heavily dominated by safe, polite, middle-of-the-road, easy listening. It was just predictable. But then you had John Peel. He dared to play the underground stuff, the progressive rock, the dub reggae, the punk. He completely and totally shattered the cozy norms of the broadcasting world.
Section 2. Rewriting the Radio Rulebook. Let's see how he rebelled from the inside.
If you scan through the official BBC Radio 1 schedule from October 1967, it's just a sea of conformity. You've got family choice, live orchestral pop, and lots of easy listening. But right there, hidden on Sunday afternoon at 1400, is Top Gear, rock and progressive music with Pete Drummond and John Peel. In a world of incredibly rigid, traditional programming, his show was a blazing progressive anomaly. Fast forward a couple of years to October 1969, and he is still at it. He's continuing to push the boundaries with rock and progressive music, sandwiched right between traditional magazine shows and standard chart countdowns like Pick of the Pops. The BBC was constantly shifting the schedule around, but Peel held his ground. He acted as this crucial gateway to the underground for mainstream everyday listeners.
Section 3. The Legendary Peel Sessions.
So how did he actually break these unknown artists to the public? He did it through his ultimate discovery mechanism, the legendary Peel Sessions. By definition, a Peel session was a regular BBC in-studio recording, usually about 4 songs by an artist. But honestly, it was so much more than that. Peel was essentially hijacking BBC resources to give a vital, high-quality platform to incredibly diverse underground genres. We're talking extreme metal, UK rap, electronic dance music, indie rock. For a lot of these bands, this was literally their very first major national coverage. The sheer scale of his influence becomes crystal clear when you run through the artists he championed. David Bowie? He was basically written off as a one-hit wonder after Space Oddity, until Peel kept putting him on the air from 1970 to 1972. Pink Floyd was practically the house band for his show. And then you have Nirvana, The Slits, Tears for Fears, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and New Order, a band that flat out admitted they owe their very existence to John Peel. The volume of massive musical icons who got their big break on his show is just staggering. Section 4. The Butterfly Effect of Sound. It wasn't just about giving one band a break. It's about the chain reaction. It's a literal butterfly effect. Check this out. In 1971, Peel catches a gig by an unknown art rock group called Roxy Music and brings them in for a session. That gives them massive momentum, right? Because of that, Roxy Music ends up selling out Wembley in 1975. At that specific gig, 2 fans meet and decide to form the punk band Susie and the Banshees. The Banshees then burst onto the John Peel Show for their own session in 1977. And those Banshees, they go on to directly inspire The Cure, My Bloody Valentine in the 80s and 90s, all the way to 21st century acts like Savages and Ya Ya Ya's. You can trace that entire lineage of modern music straight back to Peel booking Roxy Music in '71. And here's the thing. Peel absolutely did not care if he upset his audience to push music forward. When he first heard the Ramones, he said it was identical to the frightening intensity of hearing Little Richard for the very first time. So he played 5 or 6 Ramones tracks on his next show. Older listeners were furious. They immediately wrote in demanding he never play that noise again. So what did Peel do? Naturally, he went in the exact opposite direction. He played more of it. Within a month, the average age of his audience dropped by 10 years, and boom, a whole new generation of punk fans was born.
Section 5. Teenage Dreams So Hard. Let's get to the emotional core of this story.
Because despite all the massive superstars he helped launch, his heart truly belonged to one single song by a young, completely obscure band from Northern Ireland. That song was Teenage Kicks by the Undertones. It came out in September 1978 on a tiny indie label in Belfast called Good Vibrations. When John Peel first heard this pop-punk track, he famously burst into tears. He was so incredibly moved by how perfect it was that he would literally tear up whenever he heard it for the rest of his life. Now, Peel had a standard 1 to 5-star rating system for judging new tracks for airplay, but Teenage Kicks, it totally broke his scale. Out of a possible 5 stars, he awarded this single an absolutely absurd 28 stars. 28!
He was so obsessed with it that during its first broadcast on September 25, 1978, he actually broke his own strict broadcasting rules and played the song twice in a row. His justification to his totally bewildered listeners? Simply, it doesn't get much better than this. He later said in an interview that there was absolutely nothing you could add or subtract from that track that would improve it. It was just flawless.
Section 6. An unbeatable musical legacy. It's amazing to track how this one song became so intertwined with his permanent legacy. It releases in '78. By 2001, Peel goes on the record declaring it his absolute favorite song of all time. When Peel tragically passed away in 2004, Teenage Kicks was played as his coffin was carried out at his funeral. In 2008, a custom gravestone was unveiled in Suffolk, and in 2012, the biographical film Good Vibrations actually immortalized that legendary moment when he played the track back-to-back on national radio. The crucial takeaway here from this explainer is the astonishing power of one person's passion. Before he died, Peel requested that, aside from his name, the only words he wanted on his gravestone were the opening lyrics to that favorite song, Teenage Dreams, So Hard to Beat. It really leaves us with a provocative thought, doesn't it? If a single DJ, just operating out of a BBC studio, hadn't trusted his own deeply eclectic taste, would this soundtrack to our modern world even exist today? It really makes you wonder who out there right now is listening to the unknown, waiting to architect the future of our culture. Thanks so much for learning with me today.